mind saying, I struggle because I love being with my family and I love my work.
Do you have any high pressure, difficult situations?
No. So I prefer to just go straight to panic. That's
You do. In these leadership roles, you have to make tough decisions, but you don't have to make them alone.
Joining us at the table is Kane, Executive Director of Communications, Marketing, Brand, and Research at CBC, a national leader whose work sits at the intersection of trust, culture, and identity.
We're also honored to have Sarah Turney, partner and litigator at Fasken, someone who has spent her career specializing in complex real property, municipal law matters, and appearing at all levels of court in Ontario.
And completing this incredible panel is Veronica Maggisano, Vice President of Development at Oxford Properties Group, whose decisions shape communities from large-scale development projects to community service initiatives, championing inclusivity and well-being.
Today, we're exploring how women in senior leadership balance ambition with family, strengthen corporate and media spaces, and influence the communities around them, and why responsible influence matters now more than ever.
This is a conversation about influence, integrity, and the women shaping Toronto's next chapter.
I think EDI training is bloody key because you have to continually be reminded of what needs to be disrupted in order to disrupt it.
And I want to then encourage more women to look at board opportunities because we do need more women on boards. I think there's some statistics that will prove that. And this BIA board is an example of what boards could look like.
And fast forward, you can see the social benefit that will bring to all of our developments, and the economic, social, and environmental balance continues. And I think that's what creates something that will meet the needs of all of our customers, but also creates that more human-centered and development that will stand the test of time.
Well, welcome to the table, ladies. Thank you all for joining us, and we're so excited to talk to you. So jumping right in, when you think of leadership and what it means to you, beyond the title and authority that you have, what is that personal connection and what is that definition for you?
Well, I've now been in law for about 17 years. And it's an environment where I had always said to myself, if I had the privilege of being able to sort of rise through the ranks into a leadership position, I would use that opportunity to sit at the table, to try to bring positive change, to try to influence things, to make sure that different ideas and different people are represented. And that, to me, is one of the very special things about having an opportunity to be a leader is to have that opportunity to influence change. To me, that's the most kind of personal connection I have to it.
Yeah. Veronica?
I'm all in on that.
Yeah.
So I'm all in on all of that definition of leadership, having a big vision, growing others, leaving a legacy. And I would add to it as well that for me, leadership is also holistic in that I think sometimes we can go so deep into one side. And I think for me, leadership also touches other pillars like family, like health, and like giving back to the community. So it's holistic in that picture.
Those were fantastic responses. So I'm going to follow up, though, with that. I think one of the reasons people ask, have you always wanted to be a leader? And I think maybe somewhere in the back of my mind, I did. And because leadership to me on a personal level is working with teams. And I get such a high. Today is a good day, an example of when teams really work together. And I love being so proud of a team and the teamwork and showing it off. I mean, it's a personal plug. We're doing the Olympics right now. Like the teams have to work across program teams and technology teams and marketing teams. And it's just amazing. And it gives me a rush. I think that's why I got into leadership, is because I enjoy that facet of teamwork,
Mm.
along with all of the other things that were just mentioned around growing the next generation of leaders, if that's what you so choose to want to do.
Yeah, that's great. Now, the three of you are pretty seasoned in your careers. What are some of the biggest improvements that you've seen as women in leaderships compared to when you first entered the workforce?
Seasoned is such a polite way of saying it, isn't it? Thank you, Dana. I'm extra seasoned.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say particularly in so I've now learned that what I used to call Bay Street, now the younger lawyers call big law. Okay,
Mm.
big law.
Mm.
And in big law, it is night and day from 17, 18 years ago when I first stepped foot into a big law firm. The really conscious effort that has been made to ensure that there is representation across different tables. I'm at a firm called Fasken. I'm very proud to be a partner at Fasken, and we are Mansfield certified. So we have achieved the Mansfield certification by ensuring that a minimum number of leadership positions are held by women. And you best believe that takes work, that takes effort, that takes community, that takes a investment sort of across the firm.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And it's a huge change from the demographics of leadership when I started at the firm. So I have seen that, and I'm very proud to be a part of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. And it's great that you can be a part of that and really champion that and move that forward for those who are entering the workforce.
Mhm.
Yeah. What about you, Veronica?
Similar. I mean, I too have seen it's been 20 years. Yikes.
Mm.
Yikes. Like that is a long time. Everybody said it would go fast. And I think now I'm sitting there saying it really does. I entered into engineering, so not law, but
Mm.
similar to you, I've seen a big difference from when I entered to now. And I often reflect back to my first couple of weeks in engineering when I remember I got pulled aside by my boss at the time. And she said to me, Veronica, you're going to have to double and triple check your work. And it's not because you're not capable of being here. It's because you might have a harder time coming back from a mistake than others.
Mm.
Mm.
And, when I think about that, she told me that she had my back when she was telling me that. And in fact, I truly believe that she was trying to protect me. But if you can think about the pressure of an environment like that, no margin for any error.
Yeah.
I absolutely think we have improved from that time.
Yeah.
So now I think, that's eased up. Obviously, people don't need to double and triple check their work, and that people understand that everybody is human. And so that creates a much better environment. But I also think we're at this very interesting point in history right now, specifically, where I do think there are forces in the world that are challenging progress. And, I think that's really an important thing to be aware of, because often if you think of any social movement, and if anybody's listening, think of any social movement that you've been part of, sometimes you might hear people say, the pendulum might swing so far in one direction or is swung too far in one direction. And what I observe can happen is that either, you can just drop the ball and kind of forget that anything has ever happened, or sometimes people just try to bat that pendulum back so far and erase all the progress that has been made.
Yeah.
And so really in this moment of time, I do hope that we really look back in history and just remember everything that we've learned, and that will save us a lot of time and keep us moving forward.
Mhm.
I would say, like, I'm really impressed with these two women beside me in the professions of law and engineering, where it is typically, or in the past, a more male-dominated field. In marketing and communications, you could argue that that might be a little bit more open to women and to women leaders. Although if you look back at way back at the Mad Men days of
Yeah.
advertising, not so
Yes.
much, right?
so
But
much.
that's not when I started. I'm not that old, really. So in my career, I think I've had a lot of women leaders to look up to. But have I seen a change? Well, absolutely. And I'll take a look at myself. I think there's room for different kind of women to be
Mm.
in leadership. And I look at the diversity of women in leadership that has changed over the years. Like at CBC, where I work, everyone, we've reached gender parity, and that took a lot of work and many, many years.
Yeah.
And we're at, 49% women in the workforce, which is over the industry standard, and 62% in management,
Wow.
Wow.
which is fantastic.
Yeah.
And
That's
I
great,
think the
yeah.
next step is to look at what type of women are in leadership. What is the makeup of leadership in terms of its diversity? Um, in all sorts of different types of women. And I think there's a lot more to do. Yes, I'm in marketing and communications, but CBC has technology and finance and some of those areas that are typically more male dominated. And we need a lot more work in those fields for women to enter.
Yeah.
And I think that it takes commitment and dedication and a strategy in order to have that happen. And so that the pendulum doesn't swing back
Yeah.
as the forces want it to.
Yeah.
Well, and just to pick up on both of your very, very good points, to me, it's why representation at these tables matters so much, because you're absolutely right. There are social forces that are creating sort of a countervailing tide against the progress that we've made. But if there is good representation at the tables, it becomes harder for that to
Yes.
take
Yeah.
over.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah, I think you all spoke about some really interesting aspects of also having women leaders in your careers. And that's amazing that you were able to have that and also break through the traditional backgrounds of the careers you came from, which are very male dominated fields. So with that said, women have to have that struggle of, the conversation of balancing family and balancing ambition. That's something that I'm sure all of you have had this conversation throughout your career. And is that possible? So in each of your opinions, what does that balance look like? And has it been a realistic balance to have?
You know what? I used to, before kids, I used to walk around saying, my one word to describe myself was balance. And then I had kids, and there's no such thing as balance. And I'm going to just be real with you all. It gets hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to have kids. It's hard to have a career. We've had to all make choices. I've had to make choices in my family. I have a lot of help. I have twin boys who are now 14. And when they were born, like, my mother retired and moved to Toronto to help me. I have my mother-in-law who helps us tremendously. Both my husband and I have very busy careers. I don't know if I'd be able to do it all, honestly, if I didn't have some support. And so I want to be realistic that it's very time consuming. Even with all that help, I still will walk out of here feeling guilty.
Yeah.
That I'm not doing enough in either aspect of whether work or raising kids. And it's a tough job. I chose to do it. I'm glad I did. So it can be done.
Yeah.
I would just look for those methods of trying to find some support if you can.
Yeah.
Well, and can I pick up on that?
Mhm.
I wish we talked more about that struggle and had more space for talking about the legitimacy of that struggle, because I feel like the sort of kind of pop culture response to that is, don't feel guilty. You can do everything that a man can do and you don't need to feel guilty. Okay, sure, fine. But I don't mind saying I struggle because I love being with my family
Yeah.
and I love my work.
Mhm.
And that's a legitimate struggle for me to have. And if we talk more about it, we can kind of support each other more through it, as opposed to trying to deny that that's legitimate. You don't feel guilty.
Yeah.
I do feel guilty sometimes, and it's okay that I feel guilty. That little person that I made is the most important person
Yeah.
to me, right?
Yeah.
And so that's okay. And then I think a more sophisticated discussion is, how do we support each other?
Yeah.
So that in those moments when you're really struggling, when there's something really important at work and there's something really important at home,
Mhm.
How do you ensure you have support so that you can balance that in a way that's workable?
Yeah. I mean, I think I would only add by saying they used to say, right, it takes a village.
Yeah.
And I
Mm.
think that just rings true. And um so I mean, the good news is though we are also three examples of people who have managed to find a way to make career and family
Mhm.
work.
Right.
That's
And that
amazing.
is a really good thing.
Yes.
And I think we're also three examples that we're saying that it's also not every day easy.
Mhm.
So I guess the lesson in all of that is think about who's in your support group and think about it early and almost approach it a bit strategically. Is it your friends? Is it your family? Is it your partner? You have to enlist your own kids too. They're a pivotal part of it.
Mhm.
Your kids will do it, they're told.
And then also though, the organization that you work for is part of a pillar of that support.
Mm.
And I work at Oxford Properties. I have for 17 years, 18 years actually. And they have really walked the talk in this avenue. What I mean by that is look for policies like mental health policies. Do they have what kind of family policies? Do they have health and fitness for yourself, actually? Those type of policies help support and are part of your village of how you're going to get through the wonderful world of life.
Yeah, I think that's so wonderful hearing this perspective. And you're absolutely right. I think pop culture really sells it as if
Yeah.
like you can be anything you want, and that's just not the reality of it. And I think that struggle too should be shared with men because oftentimes we feel like that burden always seems like it's placed on women to be able to be all these different things
Yeah.
to their
Wear
family.
all the hats. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But it's interesting. I think I love that point that you made, Veronica, about organizations and really
Yes.
looking at organizations that support that. And each of you have decided to be involved outside of your respective organizations in many different capacities. I guess my question would be, can you recall the moment when you decided that your impact made more, like your impact in the world in different capacities was bigger than the roles that you had or the teams that you had?
Yes, for me, it is the work that I do with the Center for Addiction and Mental Health. I am a board trustee with CAMH. And for those that don't know, CAMH is one of the largest, if not the largest, mental health hospital across Canada. And it happens to be located right here in Toronto. And, getting a board seat in the healthcare field has always been a goal of mine. I've always wanted to influence city building through the aspect of health. And so to be able to work with CAMH that is literally changing the course of mental health across Canada has been very inspiring. And they are putting, $2 billion of mental health infrastructure into our city right now. And so translation as to what that means is if you go to the Queen Street campus, you'll see 2 brand new buildings being built. And you can see it. It's tangible. It's
Yeah,
live.
that's
And it's
fantastic.
going to change the course of mental health across our city.
Mhm.
And they're also working to move upstream and tackle mental health challenges earlier in kids and older adults and really make an impact. And that for me is that I can lend my experience and lend my expertise and help them in any way is something that has brought me a lot of joy and a lot of feeling that I'm making a good impact on our city.
Great.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, really, like when I felt it is when I do things like this or a public speaking engagement, especially when there's other young people, or especially young women, and they are really listening to everything that you have to say. And I remember even being at my own office, and I had decided to leave to go to another workplace, and so many women came up to me and they're like, "You are a role model." And I'm like, I am? I'm just one of you. What are you talking about? It didn't dawn on me the impact that you can have
Mhm.
on the younger generation and someone maybe just starting their career or even mid-career, just looking for some of those life lessons, which is why I love why we're doing this
Yeah.
podcast. So
Yeah.
it's that mentorship piece that I didn't realize that I had within me that I feel like will have lasting impact on whoever wants to listen to me. Thanks.
I want to listen.
Yeah.
Um, I will build on that and say similarly. I've had the privilege of being able to mentor a number of people, both at my firm and outside of the firm. And one of the things that I've gotten involved in is something called the First Generation Network, which is a network between lawyers who are first generation lawyers. There's no other lawyer in their family. That's me, and students who are also the first to go to law school from their family. And I loved the discussions that I was able to have with my mentee through that network, because it is a very strange environment, private practice and the law and business and the pace of big law. And if you have no one around you who has done it, it can be really daunting. And for me to be able to sort of lend empathy and guidance to someone, I found that very meaningful. In the same sort of vein, I do my darndest to try to create a safe space, particularly for young women at the firm, to come to me. And I believe that there have been times when I've helped someone kind of make it through a scenario that might otherwise have been too daunting or created a block for them. And I'm very proud of those moments, because I can think of many, many, many times in my career where a hurdle was either going to be a stretch opportunity, something I could really push through and learn from and get to the other side from, or it was going to be a block.
Yeah.
And the difference between those two things typically are the people around you and the leaders around you and the people you can see kind of on the other side of it, and how much, how many ties you have to them. The more of those people you have, the more likely it is you make it, through those difficult times. And I try to be that for people.
Yeah, I love all these perspectives that are coming out, and just hearing what you can do to make an impact in many different ways. All of you have decided to be and play an integral part of the Toronto Downtown West Business Improvement Area's team by being on the board. And for those of you who don't know, the BIA, as we call it, is really focused on economic development, advocacy, promotion, support. What drew you, each of you, to board leadership and civic engagement?
These women.
Well, I remember when I got the call to be part of the Downtown West BIA, and it was about 8 years ago. And I think my honest reaction was, I'm in. I mean, I live in this city, and here was this opportunity to make an impact on the Downtown West BIA. And I wanted in on that. I wanted to have skin in the game. I wanted to have a voice, be able to influence, be able to learn, be able to safeguard Toronto.
Yeah.
And so that's what drew me. It's skin in the game. I live here and I wanted to have an impact.
Great.
I don't know. What about you, Sarah?
Yeah, I love city building, first of all. I think municipalities, in terms of the 3 levels of government, are probably the most important. I mean, to most people's day-to-day lives. I used to, back before I was a lawyer, I worked for the city of Ottawa, and I bloody loved it. I loved being in the community. I worked in parks and recreation. If you've seen the show, it's all accurate. The fact that you were really directly influencing people's lives was really valuable.
Great.
So when I had the opportunity to join the BIA, I thought, this is somewhere where I can bring my skills. I'm an advocate. I practice real property litigation. I have a municipal development background. So this really fit well. And when I first joined the board, first of all, it was always a very high functioning board. However, it looked very different from what it looks like now. I joined the board 10 years ago. And at the time, I think I was one of only a couple of women, other than our executive director, on the board at all, let alone in a leadership position. Of course, I didn't start in a leadership position, but I thought, gosh, there is a real opportunity here for different voices and for representation at this table, because we are representing very diverse stakeholders and we should have a diverse table. I am very proud that through various efforts, including the governance committee, with which Veronica has chaired for a long time, we have made a real effort to change the composition of the board so that it's not perfect. It's definitely not perfect, but it is more representative of the stakeholders that we serve.
Yeah.
And look at how we are today.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
amazing, actually, to think about
It is.
the evolution.
Yeah, and I'll pick up on that. I think the reason I joined the board, well, actually, I was part of not the board before, but there was a committee
Committee.
that was set up. So a
Oh,
long time ago, that's how I was
I
first
didn't know.
introduced to the BIA. And as part of my everyday job is community and community building and bringing Canadians together across the country. But because I live here, I thought it was just the perfect way to give back. And I think there was just a moment when had it was the FIFA broadcast. I don't remember what year
Mm.
it was, and there were so many people just filling the streets of this area, and
Mhm.
it felt, I don't know, it just felt really good. And I remember being there with the executive director at the time, Janice. And then when I did get the call, like you, I thought, like, of course, yes,
Yeah.
I would love to join. But then I'll also say there's like a bit of a personal reason why I would want to do this too. I think it's an opportunity to get to sit with people like Veronica and Sarah and others who come from such different places in their work. It's a different skill set that I get to exercise. I hope that this leads to maybe more board work for
Mhm.
me in the future, maybe not right now, but in the future. And I want to then encourage more women to look at board opportunities
Mm.
because we
Mm.
do need more women on boards. I think there's some statistics that will prove that, and this BIA board is an example of what boards could look like and how they can function. And I think it is a well functioning board. Like it is really good, and I'm so happy to be on it.
Great. It's great
Yeah.
to hear.
I love that. I love that all three of you can also provide such different perspectives and learn from each other in that, and just see how different leadership styles and different how different decision making is made on boards like this. It's important to have your voices out there. There was probably a time in your lives where you were not ready to step into that position of authority, and you just felt like, oh, this is happening so quickly and this is happening fast. For women out there who might be in that position right now, how would you advise them to navigate that part of their life?
Boy, oh boy. I've spent a lot of time feeling that way. I've spent a lot of time feeling that way. So a few things. Number one, look for mentors.
Mm.
And I'll come back to this, but if you can find them, look for sponsors. And those are two different things. And I try now that I realize the difference between these two things to be a sponsor, someone who will, the difference between a mentor and a sponsor to me is a mentor will guide you, a mentor will teach you, but a sponsor will get you opportunities using their own privilege.
Yeah.
Mm.
They will get out in front of issues using their own reputation
Mm.
so that you can get to that next step. If you can find that, you can be immensely successful. You'll have so much more comfort. Going into a new space, having a stretch opportunity is exciting. It's daunting, but to do it successfully, you need guidance.
Yeah.
And so, one, you look for mentors. Two, I don't know if you can tell, but I'm a bit of a loudmouth. So I typically in my life have to remind myself to stop and listen in the spaces that I'm in. Like I come in already with ideas, right? And that's a good thing sometimes, come in excited. Like that's why having fresh ideas and people at tables is so important. You need fresh ideas. You can't just recirculate the same stuff over and over again. You're not going to improve. But when you're in that space, when you're going, I don't know if I'm ready, doesn't mean don't take the opportunity, but it does mean listen.
Yeah.
Absorb what's around you, listen to the leaders, really take the opportunity to learn and then contribute.
That's really good.
That's great.
That's how I would absolutely approach it in the scenario where, you're feeling not yet ready. And I've been there too. I also, though, want to flip it for people because I think there's many situations where we feel ready and we have to push.
Mm.
And for me, I think that has been more of a learning, actually. It's not been bad for me to actually have to be in that position where I've had to advocate and I feel ready and I want the spot at the table. And how am I going to approach that? I think it teaches you a lot about like, how to have courage, how to self-advocate. And I would also say there's a bit of pressure on yourself, because once you get the seat, you have to walk the talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you really know how to deliver after that. And I think from both scenarios, you can learn a lot.
Mm.
So if you have to try a stretch assignment, that's really good. And if you feel like you want to push for something because you feel ready, do that as well.
Mhm.
Both are equally as valuable.
Yeah, I think it's that balance. I think you absolutely hit it. Like, it's that moment where you feel nervous about taking the next step, but kind of in the back of the mind, know that you can do it,
Yeah.
but you're scared. And I will use in this conversation that imposter syndrome thingy comes
Yeah.
into play. It's always that voice talking to you in your head. And so wherever you want to find the confidence, whether it be through mentorship or listening to a great podcast, um, which I did actually to take the position that I had. I found someone and I was just so inspired. And I'm like, yeah, I can do this. I
Yeah.
can do this.
Yes.
Of course I can. I think I can do this. So I don't know, it's just this balance, but I have also approached my career and not running to always the next thing,
Mhm.
that just because
Yeah.
you're supposed to chase that next level and the next level, I always did want to feel somewhat comfortable, like really be truly prepared, like really
Yeah.
know yourself, know your limits and capabilities. Don't go into something where you're just going to fail because like I can't go into IT, everyone. I just can't do it. So it is a balance. And I
Yeah.
think you
Yeah.
just need to listen to yourself, but at the same time, push yourself where you know that you're capable. You have to push yourself out of your comfort zone. I don't think any of us would be here unless we did that.
100%.
Yeah. That I'm just listening to all of this, and it's really great to also hear that sometimes you just have to take the leap and be okay with saying that you don't have it all figured out, and you just need to find the resources and people who can back you and help you figure it out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's wonderful. So I want to talk about creating environments, because I think we can all agree that it's important that we create environments where women feel empowered and take up more space. And I'd love to hear from each of you specifically within your respective industries. I'll start with you, Maya. At the CBC, how do you ensure diverse voices are reflected in storytelling and in strategy and in branding?
Well, I could take a full hour to talk about this, but I won't. I'll try to sum it up by saying it takes dedicated work, and the CBC has been, in fact, when I returned to the CBC, it's approximately almost 4 to 5 years ago now, we really embarked on a clear set of strategies to become better storytellers for all Canadians. We realized that, maybe we could be doing a better job, and, there's still work to be done, absolutely. But we set in place strategies. We listened. We look for storytellers that come from the communities from where the stories are being told.
Great.
Um, these are all conscious efforts, and it stems from the top. Stems from the very tippy top. You have to believe in it. We have a diverse leadership team. There were goals set in place in terms of hiring. We have ERGs, which are employee resource groups that come from various diverse communities, so that we have a set of voices that can be heard from different backgrounds. Um, and in my own department, like, we have 2-year strategies. They're called the IDEA strategy, which is inclusion, diversity, equity, accessibility. And we chart a path, and it's almost to the point where I think that we've gotten to the point where it's becoming more integrated
Yeah.
into just the everyday work.
Yeah.
And you have to consciously think of it, but you're consciously thinking of it in your everyday work. It's not an add-on, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
part of it.
Absolutely. Storytelling is so important as well, because I think it creates that personal connection with those
Yes.
communities as well. And just, being able to tie people in on a more deeper level. With that said, Sarah, how do you find that BIAs and boards can help to foster those urban communities and just make things more inclusive for people?
So going back to a few of the themes that you've heard so
Mm.
far, representation matters. You
Mhm.
have to have diversity at the table. That's going to change the discussion. That's going to change the priorities. That's also going to make the board more accessible to the stakeholders. Because if the
Yeah.
stakeholders don't see themselves in the board,
Yeah.
you better believe you're not going to be getting the feedback that you need and the information that you need to
Mhm.
make good decisions.
Yes.
Mhm.
So I'd say that's one thing that we've put a lot of effort into. Something else that we did a few years ago is we put term limits in place.
Mm.
We put term limits in place very intentionally because you also need fresh
Yes.
ideas.
Mhm.
There's a lot of value to having experience and to having expertise, but at some point you gotta move on.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And and we've had a recent transition. I chaired the board for a couple of years. I'm now the former chair. Veronica is now the chair of the board. That's a very, very good thing.
Right.
You need fresh ideas, you need representation in order to ensure that the stakeholders are being well represented.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's I totally agree with that. And I think being able to be intentional about that transition helps for the experience to continue to flow through and to be passed on to new board members as others transition out as well. So yeah, I love that intentionality behind ensuring diversity is key at the top with the big
Mm.
decision makers. Veronica, how can developers influence cities to be more human centric and equitable?
I love this question. I mean, everybody knows I'm a very passionate developer. And I think when you think about city building and the influence that developers have, it's massive, right?
Mhm.
Oftentimes, developers are deciding the design, what gets built, where it gets built, and when it gets built. And I think ideally, every project that's being developed is sort of a building block to a better city. It's all part of the
Mhm.
same fabric. So that's sort of the why a developer is important in this conversation. And I think one of the ways that developers can have more human centered and equitable approaches to development is actually a long term mindset, or something that I like to call the triple bottom line. And that is looking at projects from the economic perspective, the social perspective, and the environmental perspective. And in my experience, when you have that long term mindset and you're focused on those three things, generally speaking, you build a development that will stand the test of time.
Right.
Mhm.
And so, if you're thinking of examples where those would not be in balance, I would say recently, and hindsight is always 2020, but some of the smaller micro units that have been delivered into Toronto, those likely were done for economic reasons and not necessarily in service of the population. So that would be an example of one where we're out of balance and now we have to course correct. An example of where I would say it's been done well, I'll take you out of Toronto to Mississauga for a second. And we own at Oxford, we own the Square One district.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of land, and Square One sits at the heart of 130 acres, and it's the rebuilding of the downtown. And we were adding residential units. We have the mall. It's a thriving community. But a serendipitous thing happened to us there, and that is that the YMCA was about to be closed down in downtown Mississauga. And you can imagine all of the services that would be lost for the community.
Yeah.
And they phoned us, and we saw that as an opportunity to add. And so, together with the city of Mississauga, with the Y and Oxford, we've all put skin in the game to bring the YMCA to Square One,
Mm.
and it's under construction and will open. And fast forward, you can see the social benefit that that will bring
Yeah.
to all of our developments,
Love
and the economic, social, and environmental balance continues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's what creates something that will meet the needs of all of our customers, but also creates that more human-centered and development that will stand the test of time.
Yeah. So we'll be able to see the great impact that all of this has in the future. Hopefully, we can all be there to continue to see this progress happen.
I really hope we're all part of it,
Yeah.
and that we play a really big role in having an impact on building better cities and communities for everybody, and that will just have a legacy for future generations and continue.
Yeah, that's great.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about leadership under pressure. With more authority comes more responsibility. So, how do you, each of you, approach difficult or high pressured situations that in a way that reflects your values? Sarah?
Do you have any high pressure, difficult situations?
No.
No,
Never.
so I prefer to just go straight to panic. That's my mode.
It's your inside voice.
That's oh shoot, did I say that
Yeah,
out loud?
you
Oh no. Look, yes, I mean I'm an advocate, and so I am often brought into situations where things are going wrong, maybe on the verge of falling apart, and that is frankly the spot that I find the most exciting and the area where I think I can m- m- do the most good.
Right.
And it is because I have around me a phenomenal team of
Mm.
people. And I think each of the three of us have the privilege of being at very sophisticated organizations that have been around for a long time, have extraordinary expertise and talent. And it's that allows you to be your very best in very difficult, tricky situations. So,
Yeah.
number one, it's about having the right team of people around you. That's for sure. Number
Yeah.
two, it's knowing enough about your own expertise to trust what you're good at and lean into it and trust your knowledge and instincts within your expertise, but also to recognize where the problem requires help
Yeah.
Mm.
and where it does, where it falls outside of your expertise, to not hesitate to say, you know what, I don't know the answer to that, but I know how to find it.
Mm.
And that's the second sort of step. And also why I consider it a great privilege to be at a firm like Fasken is we've got a ton of expertise. I don't have to be good at everything.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And Lord knows I'm not. But there is somebody I can turn to
Yeah.
who is excellent at some aspect of a problem.
hmm
So one, it's about having a great team around you. Two, it's about knowing what you bring to the table and trusting it, using your expertise. And three, it's about knowing when you need to ask for help and asking for it.
Great.
Yeah. I think that's such a humble way of also looking at it. I don't think a lot of leaders approach it that way. They feel like they need to know everything and the weight of the world is on their shoulders to figure things out. So it's great that there are people in leadership positions like you that can take that approach and, lead by example.
Yeah.
I think there is a point where you need to know what is a panic situation and what is just maybe an issue that needs to be solved.
hmm
And maybe even what's a long-term problem to solve. And so Sarah's absolutely right. You have to lean on your team. You don't know everything. And so I look at this as my role is to try to remain the calmest
Mm.
leader that you can possibly have. Because if
Mm.
I'm suing chaos,
Yeah.
it's just going to get more chaotic. And so I try to be the good listener.
Yeah.
I try to be transparent with the information that I have in order to try to make the best decisions possible. But then there's a part of you that also has to be a little bit of the driver, like, okay, we got to get this done. So that is your leadership role. You're kind of coordinating people's feelings and emotions when it comes to whatever the issue or the problem that you're trying to solve might be.
Yeah.
And then the other approach that I take is very much a collaborative one. Like you can try, you do in these leadership roles, you have to make tough decisions, but you don't have to make them alone. And so having a more collaborative type of workspace where you're hearing from many different sides of the problem.
Yeah.
Ultimately, yes, maybe you're the one who has to make the decision, but maybe it just becomes more clear when you have more people in the room. And if you have more people in the room who are bought into whatever it is that the decision is, then you're all going to be supportive if that fails.
Right.
Yes.
And sometimes know that failure sometimes is not as big as you think it's going to be.
Mhm.
But I'm not downplaying it because I all know we have tough decisions to make, and these are not easy jobs to be in leadership. But those are some of the tools that I would use to get through some of those situations.
Yeah, that's great.
Well, and to build on a theme that we've been talking about so far, it's also why there's so much value in having a diverse team
That's
of
right.
people
Yeah.
around you,
Yeah.
because you will have the same problems coming back to you over and over and over again if you are not looking for unique solutions,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
If you're just going to the same trough of ideas over and over and over again, it's really hard to innovate.
Yeah.
It's really
Yeah.
hard to innovate. Really difficult problems require a diverse set of ideas to get to a good solution.
Yeah.
That's rich.
And I'll build on that, because I think when we think about like a diverse table and the team-based, we all then have a responsibility to share our voice and share our thoughts. And I do want to sort of say that is not easy,
Yeah.
because to share what one individual, like you may have your own values driving how you think about a problem. And when you're sharing that in a room that may have contradictory views, it can be really, really tough. But that plays a critical part in forming and coming to the right conclusion. So don't be afraid to share that opinion. And sometimes I found in instances, I see sometimes my role as, how do I make others see it the way I share my perspective in a way that resonates, to help them understand why I'm thinking a certain way.
Yeah.
And often that helps to, maneuver the conversation in a certain direction. But it can be challenging to raise a voice, especially if you have a contradictory view. If it's based on your values, though, you'll always have a spring in your step, I think, and you'll stand a good chance.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, the decision ends up being yours to make, and you kind of have to hold the weight and responsibility of making that final call. In my career, because I work in content creation and media, there's a lot of outward responsibility in terms of public, your the way that you present yourself to the public. I'm sure all of you deal with that in a sense where you have public facing roles, you have teams of people looking up to you and waiting for your final call and decision. How do you navigate that visibility and public expectation in your workplace?
For me, the first thing about being more visible is I had to switch my mindset and just start saying yes. So I had to start saying yes to podcasts, yes to panel opportunities, yes to keynote presentations. These were things that I had to actively start to throw myself into and take that stretch assignment that we were talking about earlier. And then after that, a little bit of panic sets in, and then, it's about preparation.
Yeah.
So for me, that's how I handle it. It's first say yes, then I dive deep into prep, which is fortunately a process that I really do enjoy. It's how I maneuver through things. And the other thing I would say is, it isn't easy to go, to make keynotes or speeches. And I think often people think it's done alone, like it just comes so naturally. I always believed it was a skill I could learn. And so I sought out experts to help me. And my message to anybody listening right now is, if this is something you want to do and you need some help, just go get it, because it exists and you can become really good at it. I don't know, you have natural storytellers at CBC, I'm sure.
Yes. Well, and it's intimidating too.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, everyone, this is not easy. It is not easy. Maybe it's natural for you, but for many of us, this is not natural. In fact, I spent my entire career running away from the spotlight, really. I didn't mind being the face at a meeting, but don't put me on a panel. Don't put me in front of the camera. Still don't put me in front of the camera,
But the
honestly.
spotlight found you.
But at a certain point in time, right? Like, you're forced to do it. And I do remember being at CBC in this new leadership role, and we were all marched on to a stage where I had to speak, and Scott Russell, the head of our announcer for the Olympics, walks in the back, including some of our news reporters. And they're just such the ultimate professionals at this. And, during rehearsal, I just froze. But I think if you keep telling yourself, this is the advice that I got, just keep telling yourself that you like it. I love doing this. This is great. And honestly, it has gotten easier. And now I make other people do the same things that I've been forced to do, because they are so great. And I do think that you can learn to do it. And I just want to say, like, I think you just have to be your true self.
Yeah.
Um, lots of people have different ways to do it. People like to read, that makes them feel more comfortable. I just like to come and be myself. The more that I say yes to these opportunities that I really love, the better I think you get and the more comfortable you get.
Yeah.
Agree.
Absolutely.
Sarah.
So I agree with 100% of what Veronica and Maya have said. Maybe I'll add something a little bit different to the discussion, which is that as a leader, you are typically no longer representing simply your own
Right.
interests.
Yeah.
You're not representing just your own priorities. And so one of the things that I really had to struggle with for a long time was determining the persona that was appropriate for me to put forward.
Mm.
And this isn't about not being authentic, but it is about having to find a balance between the principles that you hold dear, which I would never suggest you compromise,
Yeah.
and the principles that your stakeholders hold dear.
Right.
Yes.
Because you can't be a good leader and take your own priorities over those of your stakeholders and your clients and your team
Mm-hmm.
simply because, they're meaningful only to you.
Yeah.
So striking that balance was something I had to really think about. At the same time, I do have principles that I won't compromise.
Yeah.
And it's really about figuring out what those are and then walking that line of professionalism where you can represent your clients, your stakeholders, your team in a way that does justice to them,
Yeah.
but also doesn't compromise anything of real value to you.
What do you do in a situation when your values are at odds with, the situation?
So I'll answer this in two ways, because as a lawyer and as an advocate, that is sometimes something I have to face. Right?
Yeah.
Because I have a duty of loyalty to my clients. Once I accept a client assignment, I don't get to say to the client, well, I don't like that. Right? As long as it is not breaking a rule, it's not doing something illegal, it's not breaking one of sort of my professional obligations, I have a duty to advocate as hard as I can for the client, even if perhaps
Yeah.
they're taking a stance that I, Sarah Turney, personally wouldn't want to take.
Right.
At the same time, again, this is what comes back to, like, you have to have a core set of values. There are some files I won't take, right? There are some clients I won't take on because it would too fundamentally rub up against core values. And
Right.
accordingly, I know I couldn't represent them well.
Yeah.
And I'd be doing them a disservice.
Right.
What kind of values do you look for in a leader, in your opinion?
Number one is consistency. Okay, to be a reliable leader, you need to have a consistent stance on things. Your team needs to know where you're going to stand on something. There is nothing more disruptive than having a leader where you don't know whether it's going to be like Sarah on a Wednesday or Sarah on a Friday, and these are two very fundamentally different people. If you don't know what your leader stands for and they don't have consistency, that's confusing. It's disruptive
Yes.
to the
Yeah.
team.
Yeah.
So I think consistency is very important. Number two, you want someone who is prepared to listen and support their team. And coming back to something we were talking about earlier, to me, good leaders are sponsors for their team members. Good leaders will give credit to their team and will step out in front of the bus before it hits them.
Mm.
Like, you have to be prepared to do that. And the people I can think of who have done that for me, I mean, are just the integrity that they have. It's something that I respect so, so deeply. And I know that it's a big reason I have the career that I have, is because I've had great, consistent leaders who have been willing to do that for me and other team members.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So talking about women in leadership for the future, Maya, maybe you can start with this. What changes do you feel need to be made in terms of societal, organizational, or just structural changes to help women progress in leadership roles in the future?
So I don't have a very comprehensive answer to this. I think what we're doing right now and the momentum that we've gained, we've spoken about at this table. I think it's all through mentorship. I think it's through businesses putting in place um, actual strategies to attract women from diverse backgrounds,
Mm-hmm.
um, looking how women are then integrated into the workplace,
Yeah.
paying attention to all of those steps from start to finish to even exit.
Yeah.
And you're building up women, not just for your own business, but you're building up women to be our great future leaders of this country and beyond.
Yeah.
So to me, I think we're starting to do all the right things. I would just encourage whatever size business that you're in, to look at women, to look at your staff complement and grow them to the best of your ability. So it's nothing profound. I think we're doing it. I'm sure these women beside me will have better ideas and answer to that question.
No, I agree. I think there's no one silver bullet that's going to just, make change happen overnight. But, this podcast is being launched right around International Women's Day. And I did look up the theme, and it is give to gain. And when you look at what that means, they're capturing like a multiplying impact. So like every little act kind of multiplies on itself and then makes positive change over time. And so I would agree. It's the small intentional acts, whether it's mentorship, sponsorship, giving your time, giving advice, bringing along somebody to the table for a meeting to just show them what it looks like. I think those are going to be the acts, intentional acts that are going to make a difference over the long term. And that's how we can make change going forward.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sarah?
Yeah, I think building on that, intentionality is key. And, one of the things that has worried me a little bit, and coming back to Veronica, something that you said I thought was very profound about there being sort of a countervailing force right now, is we're seeing a bit of a pushback against EDI training
Yeah.
in large organizations. I don't like that. I think EDI training is bloody key because you have to continually be reminded of what needs to be disrupted
Yes.
in order to disrupt it.
Mm-hmm.
So let me give you an example. It has been a long time, fairly well documented statistic that in compensation, men are more likely to be compensated on future expectations. So what you think that man will be able to accomplish, and women are compensated on past performance. You have to know that and recognize it to disrupt it when you hear it,
Yeah.
right? It's things like that that need reminder and bear repeating, because otherwise you can't disrupt it effectively.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I changed my answer. That was very good. I do think there maybe needs to be more advocacy, and I don't know who takes care of that. Maybe we all do, but is there a unit? Because you're right, pay equity still a thing, folks.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's great. I think you can even make that. You don't have to be in an official capacity to even speak to that, right? But these are all really great pieces of advice. Final question for each of you, and maybe I'll start with you, Maya. And we have a number of listeners who are tuning in right now, young ones that are entering their careers. What is one piece of advice that you would want to give to a young viewer, in particular women, as they sort of start out in their career?
I don't have just one.
That's okay. Give it all.
Yeah. We want to
Give the list.
I want to learn from this. Give the whole list.
2 things.
I know we have to end. I don't even know if I can pick two. Okay. Say yes.
Oh, that's
a
really
great
good.
one. Yeah.
That was 2 words, but it wasn't the full thought. But yeah, say yes to opportunity.
Yeah.
Try it, especially when you're young. I remember being young, you might think that you don't have any confidence. You do. You have a lot of confidence. So go in there and say yes. My other thing is, besides just the saying yes, don't be afraid to move around, especially when you're young. Try different opportunities. Sometimes that means going to a different place. Sometimes that means staying in the same place, but trying different opportunities.
Yeah.
But I think at least this helped me. It made me a more well-rounded person and a more well-rounded person in my career.
Yeah.
Very
I
good.
love that.
Very good.
That was awesome.
Okay, I'm going to build on those two. So, on the theme of board of directors, my advice is going to be build your own personal board of directors. And some people know they're on. This is going to be a group of people around you that is going to raise you up. They're going to share with you feedback that you need to hear. They're going to celebrate with you your wins, and they're going to lift you up when you're having a tough time. And you can go for them for straightforward advice, and they're going to really help you. And it also helps you really deepen relationships as well. So that would be sort of my add-on is invest in relationships, because they are going to really help you as you navigate through mentorship, sponsorship, and everything that we've talked about today.
Great.
Yeah.
Close us up, Sarah.
One word.
I would say embrace failure.
Ooh.
Embrace failure. So I have enormous privilege. Okay, I have enormous privilege. I know that there are people smarter than me who have worked harder than me, who do not have the privilege of being where I am. And in large part, it is because I have gotten lucky at the right times. I've had to work very hard. I'm not trying to take away from that, but I've gotten lucky at the right times where others have not. And I will tell you that you are more likely to get lucky if you keep putting yourself out there, and that requires failure.
Wow.
You're going to fail, and you have to say to yourself, that is just the price of getting to the next opportunity.
Yeah.
And if you're willing to do that, you will succeed.
Well said.
Thank you so much for being here. This was a really rich, insightful, and beautiful conversation. And thank you all of those of you who are listening to us today. So if you've enjoyed this conversation, be sure to follow us on all channels that where you can get your podcasts. We'll see you next time at the table.